Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this session to talk about school appeals. It's going to be hosted by the leader, Councillor Cam Rye. Just a couple of brief points to start with. This is a moderated Q&A session, so if you could pop your questions about the process in the Q&A pane at the top of your screen, they will be moderated by an officer on the call and will be answered in the session at the end. You won't have access to your camera and your microphone during this session. Don't worry about that. That's as normal, just to make sure that the session runs as smoothly as possible. And just to say that we're going to make sure this is recorded and posted on our website for the remainder of the school admissions window, so that it can be referred back to. So, without any further ado, I'm going to bring Councillor Cam Rye on the screen to give an introduction to this session.
Thank you to everyone for joining today. I think I absolutely understand the transfer from primary to secondary school is also an exciting time, but also a challenging time for ourselves as parents and carers and to the children in our lives. And it's really important that parents understand the process to make it as easy as possible. My own daughter went through it this year. She's joined into year 7, and I know what a challenging time it has been for her personally, but also as parents who stress over the next stage in their lives. And it's why I wanted this session to help guide parents and carers into the next stage. Our officers have worked really hard this year to make the process as easy as possible to understand, and hopefully this online session will add to that. We've done a lot with our education and inclusion service, our parents, and with our schools to understand how this process works. And we know there are a few common problems we want to address today. We've also invited along a local resident in Emma Shepherd-Mallison, who has provided feedback to us on the process, and we've asked her to talk about her experience and to give her top tips. I know this is a worrying time for many parents, so we want to put your mind at ease. Everybody wants their child into what they think is the best school, and we know that competition is fierce for a limited number of spaces in every school. But 95% of Redbridge's schools are Ofsted, good or outstanding. So even if you don't get your first choice, your child will still be going to an excellent school. I spent most of August celebrating the success of GCSE and A-level results across our borough with young people who'd got some of the best results that I've seen. They're into some of the best universities, but also into top apprenticeship roles as well. And the support from schools was amazing across our borough. We're one of the highest performing local authorities in London and across the country. And we've got Craig and Sapna, who are absolute experts on this stuff. And I'm really pleased they're able to offer some of their time in this target session. We'll hold a Q&A at the end, as Matthew said, and at any time you can post a question in the chat and an officer will read it out, as many as we can, to answer them. We'll keep this event online for reference for parents and carers who have missed it, and to share and have a look at later on. And I hope you get some value out of today.
Thanks, Cam. I wonder, Emma, if you wanted to talk through some of your experiences.
Yeah. Hi there. First of all, thank you for inviting me to take part in this. I think some people probably know that I've quite interested in school admissions in our borough. My experience, I've just applied for my eldest to go to secondary school in September 25, and so I've actually just completed the process myself, but I've also got a lot of experience with primary admissions, so it's a fairly similar process. So I have scribbled down 7 very sort of quick tips, essentially, that I would say as a parent or carer, it's really important that you try and do these when you're making the application. The first thing I would say is check the distances to all of the schools. It's very important that you know your precise distances. You can, and you're going to love me for this, at Redbridge Council, you can email admissions@redbridge.gov.uk with your full address and postcode and ask for the 6 closest schools to where you live. And that will help you, because you'll be surprised there'll be some you're actually not aware of that live quite close, that are quite close to you. Obviously, with secondary schools, there are catchment areas. So they're likely, the council will tell you which catchment where you live in, which school you should apply to, essentially. The other thing I would say is it's really important to use all 6 preferences. And for example, I live around the corner from the school that our daughter's very likely to go to, but I will be putting down all 6 preferences. There's been quite a few conversations I've had with parents over a period of time, used all 6 preferences, and they wish they had. So it's very important just to fill out all 6 preferences to be all belt and braces. Next thing I would say is, if you happen to be close to another borough as well, it's also important to just have a look at the other schools close by. If there's another one you're interested in, just because you're in the catchment in Redbridge, it is actually worth considering other schools as well, should some of the other Redbridge secondary schools be further away from where you live. So it's worth having a look at the other local boroughs as well. And to apply for those, you go through Redbridge, so that is part of your application process. So this is the thing that often I think parents struggle with, and carers, that they think that if they put what they call their first choice down, that's the one that they will get. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen, and I've discovered that in my experience with primary schools. So it's very important that you understand that they are preferences and that you put all 6 of them. And to give you an example, instead of considering it from 1 to 6, so that the first one considered and then moved on to the second one, the way it's done is that all of your preferences are assessed at the same time. So, for example, if you're concerned you might not get into your first preference, obviously put that first, and then make sure that you put other preferences below that, so that you know that you will stay on the waiting list for those. So, for example, if you think you might not get into a preference and there's a school that you know you will get into, the one you least likely want to go to, put that towards number 5 or 6, and put other ones higher above that so that you stay on the waiting list for those. But fingers crossed, most of you won't be in that situation. In relation to applying, I would also talk to all of the head teachers. So in your primary school, talk to the head teacher, understand where most of the children go to, what their thoughts are, what trends have changed. I'd also urge you all, if where possible, to go to all open days. That's really important. They'll be happening in the next few weeks for secondary schools. So contact the individual secondary schools to find out the dates. If it's not on their website or their social media, then you can call the school and ask. It's really important that you try and go to these to get a feel of the school, particularly as secondary school is very different to primary school. Obviously, primary school, you have a maximum of 4 form entry, whereas secondary school, they will be much bigger. I'd also obviously include your child where possible in this process. When you come to apply for primary school, your child will probably be 4 years old, and therefore you're less likely to engage them in that process. But when it comes to secondary school, if they're anything like my daughter, they will definitely have an opinion on which school they might like to go to. And it's really important to include them, and where possible, any siblings, younger siblings, take them on the journey to visit the schools and talk about the different schools that they'll be moving on to. It helps to make the process better. I would contact the schools that you'd like to go and visit and check whether or not it's an open evening or whether you need to register. This is quite important. I know some parents have found that they haven't registered to go to some schools, and they're a bit worried they wouldn't be able to get in. It's worth just a quick call to the school to check that. Most importantly, apply early. The very important thing to remember for this process is this window for secondary school applications is smaller than the primary school application window, and so it will finish at the end of October, and it's very important to apply as early as you can. Now, when you do the process, you will obviously need some identification, and it might be you don't have all of that information immediately available, but you can go through the process and you can save your application. So if you think, well, I put down these schools, but actually I haven't been to the open evening yet, you can save your application as you go along. You don't have to start from the beginning, and that's something I've actually done. I've actually saved our application. I haven't put it through yet because I want to visit the schools, and I think it's really important to do that. Also read the guidance where it's available on the website. If there are any questions, then the team at Redbridge will be able to help you understand anything, but it's quite important to read the guidance. This will give you some information regarding if you've moved at all recently, or if you're moving into the area, Or, for example, if you have separate childcare arrangements for your children split over 2 households, these things are really important to read and understand as early as you can, because the Redbridge team is very responsive, but obviously very close to deadline. It's like doing your tax return and things like that. They're going to get lots of questions. So I would advise you to engage in this process as early as you can. And essentially, just quickly, when the offer does come through on National Offer Day, should you not get the first preference that you really want to go to, please do engage with the council, because they do move. Waiting lists and things do move. So please don't panic about that. My overall message is to engage as early as possible and be in touch with the council and make sure that any offer that you are given, you do accept, so that you have a place for the September, and then you can work the process, then you can go through the process from there. But essentially, definitely do engage as early as you can. And I'm also, some people will know me who's on this, I'm always very happy where possible to help parents and carers through any of the process. I'm quite happy to have my details available afterwards if anyone wants any questions about it. So yeah, do get in contact. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emma. That was a really helpful run through of your experiences as a parent, and some really great tips for some of our prospective parents for this year to take away. I wonder now if we could move on to just some facts and figures about our Redbridge schools with SAPNA before we move on to the process.
Good evening, everybody. So these are just some stats that we have. So as Councillor Cam-Rye said, a majority of the schools in the borough are outstanding and they are rated good. I won't repeat too much because Councillor Ryan's pretty much hit on the GCSE results. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I think this is the most important part. The application process opened on the 1st September and it will close on the 31st of October. If you have applied for your child to sit the 11+ test, I would advise you to wait until you have the outcome of your test before you make your preferences. Some of you may be applying for more than one grammar school in a different area. Moving forward, I know that there's a lot of movement within and out of Redbridge. We know that we have the common catchment area for the 11+, and we have a lot of people moving into the borough. The late deadline date for that is the 12th of December. So you must ensure that you have completed an on-time application by the 31st of October. The late deadline will only count as an on-time application if you let us know by the 12th of December. You must email us. The offers that come out in March, it's the 1st of March, which is National Offer Day. It will be a single offer process. This means if you've chosen 6 schools and we offer you, for example, your 5th preference school, if you are happy with that school and you don't want to be considered for anything higher, we advise you to notify us and ask us to take you off the waiting list for higher preferred schools. If you don't do this and we offer you a higher preference, the offer that you have been offered and have been sent will then be automatically withdrawn. I think, is there any more slides after this, Matthew?
Yeah, we've got some common mistakes to avoid.
Yeah. So we do advise choose all your 6 preferences. It's important to include your catchment school. Information is available on our website that will tell you the last allocated distance for September, just gone now. I would advise that you look at that information, look at the distance from your home, and be realistic on the preferences that you are making. For example, if you do not live in the catchment of Seven Kings School, it is highly unlikely you will be offered a place at that school. The distance to that school from your home is getting shorter and shorter each year. The stats online will provide you with that information. We advise you to use the address where your child is living with you. If you have an agreement where a child is living 50% of the time, we need legal documentation that confirms the child's living arrangements. The parents that have sibling on roll at a secondary school already, please ensure you add that to your application. There is a sibling priority tick box under each preference that you choose. If your child's attending that school, please tick that. I would say that's pretty much it from me. I would say to move on to questions, as I would imagine there might be more.
Excellent, thanks, Sapna. So I think what I'll do is I'll take the presentation off screen. I'll bring Councillor Camry and Emma on, and then we can go through some of the questions in the Q&A and decide who wants to tackle them. So I think the first question is, I live very close to a high school. Can I just put that one down on the list?
You can put just one school down, but we advise you not to. If you don't get that school offered, the allocation that we make to you will be the nearest school to your home with a vacancy. So it may not necessarily be the next closest school to you, because we have to see what's available after National Offer Day.
Fantastic, thank you. I think we've just covered the next question, which is about splitting time between parents, which makes our next question. Our top choice is in Redbridge, but we live in the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham, but we're very close to the school in Redbridge. Would this affect our application? Should we still put that school first?
Definitely. If you're interested in schools like Emma shared earlier, if you live on the border and you're closer to another school that's outside of Redbridge, do put them on your application. We will coordinate with those boroughs.
Thanks. So our next question is, we may be applying for a grammar school depending on 11+ results. If my son passes the test and we put that as our first choice and we don't get in due to limited spaces, will we lose out on our second choice?
No. So basically, if you put one of the grammars as your first preference and you don't initially get offered a National Offer Day, what it means is we'll look at the rest of your preferences to see where we can meet you with the criteria. We will then make an offer accordingly. Your child will remain on the waiting list for any higher schools that what we offer, and then the waiting list come out roughly 3 weeks after National Offer Day.
Sapna, could you just could you just describe again what happens if somebody puts just one school down and they don't get it? So just describe the process for them and they understand what would happen.
Sure. So by putting one preference down, you are limiting your choice. We always say choose 6 schools. Even if you are in the catchment for a certain school, such as Seven Kings or Valentine's, there is a cut-off distance. So we do say have a look at that. Do email us if you're not sure about your distance and we can confirm it for you so you can make a realistic choice in the next preferences that you choose. If you do only stick with one school preference and we don't offer that to you on National Offer Day, it doesn't mean you won't receive an offer on National Offer Day, you will, but it won't be your preference school. It will be the nearest school to your home with a vacancy. So that means it will look at all the vacancies after all the offers have gone out.
And could you just describe, because I hear this sometimes as well, if you put down all 6 or 5, for example, or 6 your 6 schools, does it impact at all the first preference or the decision on the first preference?
Not at all. So no preference has an impact over any other one. If after National Offer Day you decide to appeal for all 6 schools or one school, it doesn't impact your application. It has no impact at all on what you're offered.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think the next question we will tackle is, when are the results of the 11+ published?
So that will be available. A confirmed date will be available on our website closest to time, but we're looking around, I believe it might be week commencing the 18th of October. No, the 21st of October. Week commencing the 21st of October. They're due to come out in that week.
Fantastic. Shall we move on to, my son has an EHCP, which I'm waiting for it to be finalised. How should I handle this in respect of a secondary application?
So if your child doesn't have a confirmed EHC, you are to complete the e-admissions application as normal. If any time that in between the process or after you've made the application after the closing date, your child is given a EHCP, the application we will just withdraw because the SEND team will name a school. So that's a different process altogether. So we don't manage the SEND applications.
Great. We've had a few questions about open days, so I'll try and sort of phrase it as tackle all of them. Is there a simple list of open days in the borough, and why isn't there?
So the reason for that is the schools themselves do not like to clash with other particular schools in the surrounding area. There's last minute changes. So we, instead of providing inaccurate information sometimes, which can happen, we would advise that you go to the school's website directly. And more importantly, there may be further information on the school's website that we may not be privy to.
That's great.
It's just on that. I mean, MMO, to shed some light on this, what are the top tips about what you should be looking for? What questions you might want to ask the school? What did you take out of your open day visits? You're on mute, Emma.
Thank you. Well, I haven't actually been on it yet because my daughter's in year 6, but obviously I'll be going to them. But the things that I would look out for definitely would be to take your child around, understand their interests. So if they've got a particular interest in drama or maths or something like that, is to identify that within the school and go and speak to the relevant teachers. I would also, one tip that I've seen from other parents actually is if your child is in year 5 now, so you won't be applying till next year, try and take them to an open day now as well, because there's a lot to take in. It can be very overwhelming, and there's only one open day opportunity in the application process. So try and take them early and take any siblings along with you as well, so that they get an understanding of the school, because it's quite likely they will probably go to that school if their elder sibling goes there. So you just start the process that way. I would also read the social media platforms in terms of have a look at all the different schools, their different social media, what they're talking about, the things that they're interested in, and engage your child in that as well as much as possible. Those would be my sort of top tips.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think online we get a lot of results. We get a lot of results focused information. But when you visit the school, depending on what your children's interests are, you might find that a school is, and there are schools in the borough that, like we said, the vast majority are excellent, outstanding, and good. But there are some that focus on vocational skills, some that focus on drama, music, and sport, and that might be the thing that is the most important to your child or to yourself. And it says it's definitely worth visiting a school, not just think about past reputations or things that you've heard from other parents about how good a school might be. It just needs to be right for your child.
And if I may add as well, where possible, try and speak to the head teacher when you go to that school as well, where possible, to get a sense, or the deputy head and the head of years and things like that, and try and engage as much as you can with them. And it doesn't just have to be restricted to the open day. I mean, you're bound to be able to have some follow-up questions as well. And if you know any ex-pupils or any pupils who are coming towards the end of their secondary school journey locally who you can speak to, that's also worth having a conversation with them as well to understand their experiences. But schools do change quite a lot, particularly secondary schools. So it's worth just understanding and having a look at the prospectus and what the aims and the objectives are of the school executive for the following years.
Thanks very much. I think we'll move on to the next question then. I'll bring Craig on screen for this one. So what if you are adamant on not sending your child to the catchment school, but you've not been offered any of your preferred schools in the borough? What would be your next steps and advice?
Always contact admissions. We're there to help. We're there to discuss your options with you. The local authority will always have a statutory responsibility in offering you a school that is in with reasonable distance. So we'll work with you on that and let you know what vacancies are within the schools. We'll never want to see a child without a school allocation. It's really important. early on that you get in contact with our team so that we can work through that and let you know what your options are. You will always remain on waiting lists, so we always advise that. So it's often the best option would be to accept the school that we have offered you that will be the closest to your home address. You will always remain on that waiting list, and you can renew that each year, and you can keep checking with us about the waiting list positions. But it really is about working together, making sure that your child doesn't have any interruptions to their education. As we've said previously, all of our schools within the borough do really fantastically well with our secondary school and GCSE results, but it is about working together.
Fantastic, thank you.
Just on that, Matt, Craig, could you just give us a bit of information on when people don't get the place they want and then they accept the one that you've provided? You know, it may be outside the top 6 as well. How often do you find people drop off the list on the waiting list and actually find that the school that they're in, their child is settled in there, or that they've accepted it, or do you find that people continually remain on the waiting list?
It varies, but we do find that we have a lot of families who actually, once they've started the school and the young person experiences the school and starts building friendships, they become very settled in that school and actually don't want to change. So you do have a mix there. Some parents are quite insistent because of distance and travel arrangements, and we understand that, but it is very much about that coordinated approach with the young person, because they will get settled, they will start building those relationships and getting used to the teachers. So often you'll find that when they do get offered, they'll decline and say, actually, we're very happy in the school we're in. It's just that initial fear of the unknown in some respect, and that hope of getting that school place. But we'll always be transparent about the waiting lists and the numbers, so you are clear on the chance, you know, what the next steps would be for securing education.
Fantastic, thank you. I think the next one we'll throw out there is, does an early application mean you have more chance of getting your first choice?
So basically, we have the on-time application because we do have people moving in and out of the borough. It doesn't necessarily give you your preference. It doesn't give you your first preference as such, but what it will do is it means it gives you the best option. So you will be offered within the first round of main offers to go out. There may be late applicants that come in just before the national offer date that we may not be able to take into consideration, because we have a process that we do in the background where we're importing, exporting files, where we're working with e-admissions. So it might be that during the iteration process, what we call when we're coordinating with all the boroughs, we may not be able to go into the system to make those changes. So it's not necessarily, if you make an early on-time application, you're going to get your first preference, but you stand a good chance, if you're realistic with your preferences, you stand a good chance of being offered one of the 6 preferences that you do choose.
And can I add to that as well? Just to say, I think, Matt, that might be, the question might be as in early on in the process. So the process that's open now that ends at the end of October. If it's in reference to that, then that makes no difference. That's right.
No, that makes no difference. No, that's right. So the deadline in place is the 31st of October, and that applies to everybody, and all applications are treated equally. The only difference in offering is that we look at criteria. So where you live, your catchment, your circumstances, that's what takes a play in the process.
I'd do it early for peace of mind. I'd say that for any parent, and for someone who's done it myself, that the earlier you do it, then you've made your decisions, and you can, you know, at least you know you've got it in time, and then you'll be considered equally.
And also, just to remind you, if you do go back into your application for whatever reason between the 1st of September and the 31st of October, and you think that school doesn't look right, or you want to move a certain school up or a lower preference, just remember to resubmit your application. Any changes you make, you must resubmit. If you don't do it, they won't come through.
And just to add to that as well, I think what I mentioned in my top tips, so I've done the application for our Year 6 child, and I've saved it. I haven't actually submitted it. So I've saved it because she was very clear she had to have final say on the preferences of all the other schools. So for the part of the process of taking part in this as well, I've saved it, so I can move those up and down, and then I'll submit it. But the point that Sapna makes is the same with primary school admissions, where if you've already submitted it, you then have to resubmit. It's very important.
Fantastic, thank you for that really, really good advice. I think the next one we'll tackle is a good one, just about the split between parents' addresses. So we're going through a divorce and not sure at this stage where our child will be living. One option is Redbridge and the other is in Epping Forest District Council. Is there any advice on how to kind of navigate school application in this situation?
So we would say for now, in a situation like that, the child is living with a parent. So we would say look around 2 weeks before the deadline, see where the child is living and realistically where they're going to be living after that deadline. If they're going to remain with parent A, we would advise that you use that address. If something happens after the deadline and the court orders are different and a different address is stated, then we would change that. And don't forget there is a late move-in date of the 12th of December, but that is for people moving into Redbridge. If you're moving out of Redbridge, you will need to check with those boroughs what their late move-in date is. I know from the top of my head that Essex move-in date is slightly different, so you do need to keep an eye on that.
Thanks, Sapna. Another really good one in here is, can I ask about academy schools? How are they different to state secondary schools? Is the curriculum the same? What's the difference between a Redbridge school and an academy?
I'll take this one. If it's regarding curriculum, there is no difference. Each school offers different subject areas in their latter years when they're doing choices. So it's about doing the research of what other curricular subjects, but they'll all offer a core level of subjects, and there is no difference between the academies and the local authority maintained secondaries regarding curriculum, and they're all Ofsted inspected as well, so you can check Ofsted reports as well.
Great. Can you just clear up whether they have or they can have a slightly different catchment area or the way that it's described? Are they drawn out or are they straight line distances?
I'll let Sapna come in on that one. She's the expert on the distances.
So it is the safest walking route. With academies, you do have to check. So as some of the parents online might be aware, Chadwell Heath Academy doesn't have a catchment, so they measure their distance in meters. So it's always advised to get in contact with them if you are interested in that school. Find out from them how they calculate your distance and what it is in meters. They'll give you that information. The criteria online states what the walking distance is and how we calculate it. I would advise you to go on that and have a look and have peace of mind for yourself, because it can differ depending on what you're looking at, what school you're looking at.
And can I add on that and stress again to fill up the Redbridge administration's inbox with requesting the closest schools and anyone in particular from your address, because there's a specific system that Redbridge uses that is not Google Maps, and it's much more accurate to point like 3 points of a decimal in terms of miles. So it's very important to make sure you know your exact distance if you're concerned that there's a school that you might only just get into if you apply for it.
And please do check our online maps. We have an online map that checks your catchment area, so you can go into that area and type in your postcode. It will drop a pin and let you know what your catchment is for your area.
Fantastic, thank you. There's another one here, which is a question I know we've had some discussions about internally recently, so this might be a good one for you to answer, Cam. What's the likely impact on state school places with VAT for private school fees coming in from this year? Are prospective parents less likely to get a place at some of our best local schools? What are Redbridge going to do to tackle this?
So, it is a really good question. I think the answer is actually a little bit up in the air. I think there will be some parents who are impacted by this, people who are maybe just about affording to pay for the private school fees. And then there'll be some that will just accept that the prices in private school fees have historically been going up anyway. There may be a one-off increase for not having the VAT taken off, but historically they have been going up quite significantly. I think for us, what we've asked officers to do is monitor the situation to see what's happening. If we're getting additional, especially this year, we'll get a clear picture of that in terms of if parents are changing their decision making, not just for those who may be in private and in private schools right now, but for those who might have considered going into private schools or decided against it, there is that possibility. Well, I think we just need to monitor that situation. We don't have a huge number of private schools in the area, so I think if there is going to be an impact, it will be minimal. But I think it's something we'll have to monitor and keep an eye on.
Fantastic. I know Sapna's taking the school catchment area questions here as the expert. Are we only in the catchment area for one school?
Yes, you are.
Brilliant. Question answered. What evidence is required for social and medical circumstances to be considered in a school application?
So first of all, you want to check that your school that you're applying for has that within its criteria. If it does, you must make sure you click it on your e-admissions application, very similar to how you would click if you had a sibling. And the information you would provide would be a diagnosis report of your child's condition.
Fantastic. Another one. So I live on the border of Redbridge and Waltham Forest, and my daughter goes to a primary school in Redbridge. Is this taken into account for secondary school places in Redbridge? So I think, is that more likely because she's already on Redbridge's books?
No, unfortunately not. It's based on where you live and the criteria are stated.
Fantastic.
I think just on that, Sapna, sorry, just a quick question. What about schools that are all through?
Right. So Isaac Newton, for example,
just
if you have a child,
to tell parents about what all through is.
Yeah, so if you have a child in year 6 that is in Seven Kings, Isaac Newton, all through school, they will have an automatic transfer into secondary school. If you've applied for any other school like the grammar school, or if there's another school that interests you outside of the all through school, then you can make an application for those schools. You do not need to make a preference for the school that you're attending that's all through.
Brilliant. I think this is a good question for Emma, who we've got on the line. How can I gauge whether a school is more academically biased or an all-rounder? What questions should I be asking at open days, and how can I determine this from the website?
Well, you can obviously look at Ofsted inspection reports, but I would also look at the prospectus of the school. Like I said before, I would also speak to any parents whose children are already there, look at social media platforms and feeds, and understand about what the school is talking about, what direction that the head is planning to take the school in. That's really important, essentially. There's also schools listings as well within the country as well. You can look up online the schools listings and where it's come in all of its various GCSE results and other examinations that school will do. So that's a good way to gauge it as well. Essentially, there's quite a few things. At the end of the day, though, it's really, really important, I'd say, to involve your child in the preference, because your child is the one who has to go to the school. And as a parent, you really do obviously want the best school and you want them to do really well. Part of that as well is it's really important that the child is brought into the process and enjoys at the school that they go to. So I would definitely ask your child what they're particularly interested in studying as well. So it's really important.
Fantastic.
Just on that, could anyone shed any light on, or just give some information really on this, on the GCSE range that's available in the borough, that some schools might not offer the same GCSE. So if there's a particular subject you might want to, your child might be interested in it, you just, if that's something they would like to pursue in 3 or 4 years' time of being in that school, then is that something that's available to them? Does anyone want to speak about the range on that, or anyone know that, Craig or Sapna?
That's not really information that we have at our disposal, just because when we're allocating school places, we strictly stick to the criteria. So I would say in this circumstance, if there are particular interests that your child has, please take the time to do the research and have a look. There are particular schools within the borough that do specialise in sports, for example, and other areas. So I would say to start having a look and having those conversations now.
Yeah, I would second what Sapna said. Sorry, Cam. I second what Sapna said. Definitely speak to the schools, have a look, work. Understand there are some schools that will position themselves in terms of the creative arts. There'll be some that will really focus on other areas of academic learning. So again, it's just about trying to have a good look through the prospectus, and where possible on the open days, see what they're highlighting. There will also, on the open days, there'll be current pupils there who will be able to answer questions. So that's another thing worth considering.
Yeah, I think as a follow-up to the end of this session, we should get some information about where there might be anomalies in what's on offer to study in a school at GCSE level, just so parents can see that if there's a particular subject that might be available in maybe a handful of our schools and not all of our schools.
Great. I just want to touch on this one, possibly with Craig, because I know this is something we wanted to touch on in this session. If we wanted to get into a faraway school from our home address, could we use our shop address?
No, it's really important that you use the address that you reside at normally, and we do check addresses on a regular basis, and we take great care in making sure that applications are fair and that they're used with the correct addresses. So it's really important that when you do declare that on your application, that the information you've submitted is accurate and it is a true reflection of where you do reside. So we really do ask that use your residential address, not your workplace or any other address. So that includes family members or anybody else who might be offering to let you use their addresses. Please do use your own address.
Hey, can you just go a bit further on and explain the kind of the legalities around that and the implications of putting in the wrong address falsely?
Yeah, so it does. We've had a few cases recently with which we've been working with our partners in different departments of the council to identify fraud, because you are declaring that you live at that address and it's a fraudulent application, and we are withdrawing applications on that basis, and our colleagues within our fraud team are pursuing that through potential legal action. So it is really important that you do make your applications accurately and there is no fraudulent information, because the council considers that a serious matter and would pursue that action. And we do want to make sure that all our applications have been made fairly and that allocations are made fairly in line with the admissions code. So we really do need parents to understand that it is fraudulent and it is an offence to use a wrong address or a fraudulent address.
Thanks very much. This is another good one. Some schools require an SIF form, a SIF form. Is this sent to the school after a place has been offered or as soon as the application has been submitted?
So a supplementary information form known as a SIF, you will need to complete that if you are selecting a faith school as a preference. That SIF form must be returned directly to the school by the deadline date, not after, must be by the deadline date.
Fantastic. I think we're on 6:43, so we're going to take two more and then wind down to the end. But any questions where we've had quite a persistent theme, or we've had lots of questions on, we can always address and pop those answers on the same page that we're going to put this recording on. I think the next one we'll tackle is, if my address changes between May and October, how do we update the council?
You simply need to get in contact. Are you talking generally, or is this to do with school application?
Yeah, to do with the school application. So during the application process, if the address changes.
So the application process opens on the 1st of September and closes on the 31st of October. So in between May and October, you'd still be able to go onto your application and make that change?
I think they might be referring to after National Offer Day, so before they start in September, October time at the secondary school, maybe. Potentially.
Oh, right. So
yeah.
Of course, yeah. So if you are moving into Redbridge, you need to notify your current home local authority that you're moving. They will transfer your child's application to us, and vice versa. If you're moving out of Redbridge, you would need to notify Redbridge that you're moving, give us your new address, provide proof of address, and we will coordinate that and transfer your child's application to your new home borough.
Satna, it might be helpful if you could explain what happens if, for example, National Offer Days happened and they haven't got the place that they wanted, however, they've moved within the borough and they're probably a bit closer to the school. And just maybe if you could explain what that means for.
So any changes that affect your address will affect the distance to any school. So for example, if you are living 3 miles from a school and you move and you're automatically 1.5 miles closer, the address that we put onto our system will calculate that, so all your preferences will be under a new distance, so that will all be reflected in your waiting list. The other thing I'd like to remind everyone is after National Offer Day, we have a 2-week window where we're accepting and refusing offers that parents are telling us where their children are going. After those 2 weeks have happened, we then put the waiting list into effect, so we can then see where vacancies are. But at the same time, I will say between National Offer Day and up to September of your child going into school, vacancies arise, children's circumstances change, parents move out, anything can really happen. So I would say that just keep an eye on the waiting list and have a look. Don't automatically think I'm going to decline that place because I'm going to get something higher. That's not how the process works.
And just on this, if let's say someone's received an offer on National Offer Day, and then between then and September, their address has changed, they've moved out of the borough or moved into a different part of the borough, what do they have to do? What are they obliged to do? What does it impact that offer?
So if you have been offered Redbridge School as a Redbridge resident and you're now moving to another borough outside of Redbridge, we will look to see what your distance will be. If the distance is further than what we've last allocated, there is a chance that we will withdraw that place because we could be disadvantaging someone that actually does live in the borough.
Are they obliged to tell you, is what the question I suppose was asking at the start, is what I think it's reading
100%,
between the lines.
It is. We would, yes, you are obliged to let us know.
Yeah, I think that's what the question was really asking, maybe, but I'm not sure.
Okie doke. So just gone past 6:45, so I think we'll take our last question, which is, do my child's SATs results affect secondary school offers and acceptance?
No, they do not.
Fantastic. So I think we'll draw this session to a close for today. We've got 240 people on the line, which is really positive. And thank you everyone for your questions. We have had a number of questions come in kind of several times over, so we'll pop some of the key themes on the page along with this recording, and any questions that we didn't get around to, we'll pop on the same page as well. In the chat, in the Q&A, I've also posted the link to the just the general admissions information page and to the catchment area calculator. But I think for today, that's probably all for this session. So thank you very much, and we shall let everyone get back to their evenings.
Thank you.